Today we're going to explore the early years of one of the most notorious serial killers in history, Andrei Chikatilo, also known as the Butcher of Rostov. Andrei Chikatilo was born on October 16, 1936, in the small village of Yablukny, Ukraine. His childhood was marked by poverty and hunger, which were exacerbated by the ongoing famine in World War II. His father, Roman, served as a soldier in the Soviet Army, and his mother, Anna, worked as a laundress. Due to their frequent absences, Chikatilo was often left to fend for himself and his younger sister. Andrei Chikatilo was described as a quiet and withdrawn child. As a result of his difficult childhood, he developed a deep-seated sense of inferiority and shame. He felt inadequate in both his academic and social abilities, and his low self-esteem made it difficult for him to form relationships with others. Chikatilo was particularly affected by the bullying he experienced at school, which left him feeling powerless and humiliated. During World War II, Chikatilo witnessed the atrocities committed by both the Nazis and the Soviet Army. Later, as a young man, he worked in a factory that produced coffins, which further exposed him to death and mortality. These early experiences and exposure to such violence and death may have had a lasting impact on his psyche. As Chikatilo grew older, he struggled to find a sense of purpose or direction in his life. He was conscripted into the Soviet Army in 1957 and served as a communications officer in Berlin. After completing his military service, he found a job as a teacher, but his lack of confidence and poor academic record made it difficult for him to keep the position. He also worked as a factory worker, where he again struggled to maintain a steady job and was often fired due to his erratic behavior. Chikatilo battled various personal and professional issues. In 1963, he married Feodosia Odnacheva, and they had 2 children. However, his marriage was troubled, and he had difficulty maintaining intimate relationships. He experienced sexual dysfunction, which further eroded his self-esteem and contributed to his feelings of isolation and alienation. He also faced multiple rejections in his attempts to find stable employment, which added to his sense of inadequacy and frustration. Chikatilo's first known murder occurred in 1978, when he lured a 9-year-old girl into an abandoned shed and killed her. This sparked a massive police investigation, but Chikatilo was able to evade capture for years, leading to one of the most extensive manhunts in Soviet history. Chikatilo's modus operandi was to lure his victims to secluded areas, often under the guise of a job interview. Once alone with his victims, he would attack them, often by stabbing or slashing their throats. Chikatilo was known for his extreme violence, often biting off his victims' nipples and genitalia. He targeted a specific demographic, mostly young women and children, but he also killed elderly women and men. He would often stalk his victims for days or weeks before attacking, watching their routines and planning his attack. Despite the massive police investigation and widespread fear in the community, Chikatilo managed to stay unnoticed and continue his crimes unabated. Chikatilo's downfall began on September 13, 1984, when he was accidentally spotted at the Rostov bus station by 2 undercover detectives due to his unusual behavior. Chikatilo raised the officers' suspicions, and they instinctively followed him around. After they witnessed his attempts to harass young women, they finally arrested him and held him in the police station. At this point, evidence led the police to believe that he was connected to several unsolved murders, but unfortunately these charges were dropped. And after a year in prison, Chikatilo was once again free. On November 6, 1990, an undercover police officer named Igor Rybakov noticed Chikatilo at a train station in Novocherkassk. Rybakov observed Chikatilo behaving suspiciously and believed that he might be the serial killer they were looking for. The officer stopped and checked Chikatilo's papers, but because no formal reason for arrest was presented, he only filed an incident report. After a week, Svetlana Korostik's body was found. As a result of the prior investigation, Chikatilo was put under surveillance, and the police began collecting evidence and building a case against him. Finally, on November 20th, Chikatilo was arrested. DNA samples from his semen were matched to samples taken from the victims' bodies, and witnesses who had seen him with some of the victims made the case against him solid. Initially, Chikatilo denied all of the charges that were brought against him. However, after several months in custody, he finally confessed to the atrocious crimes that he committed. His trial began in April 1992, and he was found guilty of 52 gruesome murders and sentenced to death. Andrei Chikatilo was a merciless monster in human form who terrorized society for years. His capture was a major victory for the Soviet police that ultimately put an end to one of the most notorious serial killer sprees in history. While he may no longer be a threat to society, his crimes continue to shock and horrify people to this day. His case has been extensively studied by criminologists and psychologists around the world in an effort to better understand the motivations that lay beneath his dreadful crimes. As we go about our daily lives, we must always be vigilant for monsters that hide behind even the most innocent facades. Thank you for watching this chilling video about the Butcher of Rostov. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe.